Okay.
Good morning, everyone. This is the May 19th, 2020 SWAN Fireside Chat. My name is Aaron Skog. I'm the SWAN Executive Director. We are hosting these weekly online meetings for SWAN member libraries. So today's update, we're going to really start digging into what curbside is looking like for some of our member libraries, and we'll talk about the communicator app. So this is a webinar that will be recorded, as I noted, and we'll walk through just a little bit of how this webinar platform will work. You do have the ability to send in questions, but there's really no chat as far as this platform. You can raise your hand. If you do raise your hand, and Dawn has circled that in the slide, there's a hand icon. We can see that in the list, and we can unmute you if you would prefer just to ask the question. Otherwise, we try to get all questions that are submitted answered by let's say by the end of the day, and we post these along with all other meetings is part of some of our minutes and post-meeting activities. So let's talk a little bit more here about the housekeeping. Yeah, I think I covered everything there. So we are going to need to cover some of what is our action recap, such as the due date extension and what reopenings are looking like, and quarantine recommendations. We do have a number of other topics we're going to cover, such as hold processing, our report folder for COVID data, and coordinating some third-party integrations. We have some concerns at this point about some other integration apps that are being maybe considered, and we want to talk about that. And Stephen will go over the curbside communicator. Hopefully we'll have time. We can talk about the PPE order and our SWAN Expo series. So Dawn, do you want to talk a little bit more as far as where we're at as far as these action items?
Yeah, so basically not a lot has changed in the past week. SWAN-wide, it has changed significantly for some of you. I believe we've got 11 libraries as of today that are offering some type of curbside service. But one alert that we do want to bring to your attention is that those initial digital cards, digital only cards that people registered for when we started shutting down, those are going to reach their 90-day expiration date around mid-June. And we are perfectly fine with extending those for 90 additional days at that point in time. So we're thinking of extending them through September. We just, like to hear your feedback on that. We know that some of you are not going to be able to verify and convert those into full patron cards until you're back up and running. And we don't want those patrons to lose their ability to use your digital library services. So we are tracking that date that's coming up, and we want to make sure that people don't lose any of those temporary privileges until we're all, back to semi-normal. Another thing that we did this past week is, as our libraries are opening, we know that patrons are going to just have a flood of items that may become available, and those patrons may want to start suspending their own holds. We had disabled that ability in Enterprise for that period when we were all shut down, because we were suspending patrons' holds and they were going in and unsuspending, and it was kind of this round and round we go. But we now know that patrons need to do that. So we have, Tara has re-enabled that ability. And for those libraries that are not yet offering any kind of services, it's not a problem because your library is closed. Those holds that are not, that a patron goes in and unsuspends, they're just going to sit there until you're ready to process them anyhow. So it's kind of, we're at a situation where that is causing no problems now in our processing. Another piece of information that you can coordinate through a help ticket is, our recommendations are, when you're processing materials for curbside, that you send the checkout receipt via email to that patron. So then they see exactly what's going to be in their bag and what's been checked out. And you'll notice here that we have default wording that we've put in everybody's email checkout receipt, but we also can customize that for you. So you see on the left, we've got Acorns, and on the right, we've got Glen Ellen's. So if you require some additional information in this email receipt, be sure that you send in a support ticket and we can customize that for you so that you are providing the information that's helpful. You know, when your pickup hours are, how to access curbside, all of those things. So our IT team is handling those as they come in. So as we like to say, data doesn't lie. So let's look at what's happening around the consortium. We've had a little bit of problem trying to figure out, is a book drop open? Is it not open? Crystal went through everybody's website and Facebook pages to try and correlate things that we didn't know through tickets coming in. And what we're finding is we're definitely seeing libraries starting to process those book drops. The blue line shows those libraries since May 1st that have checked in more than 10 items and any day. So that probably means there's somebody on site doing check-in. The orange shows 10 items. I'm sorry, blue is 25 items and the orange is 10 items. So we know that libraries have staff on premises, and about 25, about a quarter of our libraries yesterday appeared to have someone on site actually processing book drops. And that's just what we can tell, what the data is telling us. So looking at that a little bit further, how many items have been checked in? Well, yesterday there were nearly 5,000 items checked in throughout the consortium. And so far, since May 1st, we've had 23,000. So we are seeing a steady increase. Mondays are appearing to be heavier, which makes sense. And then we've also got a breakdown based on library. Which libraries, and our top 10 libraries are shown on the right for the number of items that have been checked in since May 1st. So you get an idea of the activity that's happening throughout the consortium. So did we get any questions about any of that? Anything else? You guys keeping an eye on questions?
The only thing was National noted that they've been opened all throughout and have been checking out and clearing items.
Right, yeah. Okay, so during last week's Fireside, we had some questions about a revised recommendation for the time period that's recommended for quarantining materials. And Rails had updated their recommendation to say up to 7 days. We did a little bit of research after we got that information from our members at the Fireside to see where that was posted and what data that was referenced in regard to. And there is a news post that Erin posted last week that gives an update kind of on the science and also presents what libraries throughout the United States that we could find their opening plans and their publishing of what their quarantine period is. So there's as was posted in the news post, libraries should determine the quarantine time period that employees are comfortable with, at minimum 72 hours. And until there are revised recommendations from the CDC, SWAN is asking that libraries quarantine for a minimum of 72 hours. Some libraries may choose longer. We know that some of our libraries are following the 7-day recommendation. And we will work with you to assist in any of those work processes with the timing that your library chooses. So we just wanted to clarify that kind of discrepancy in what SWAN was recommending and what Rails was recommending. Aaron, you have anything else to add to that?
No, other than it's clear that we are going to be waiting for a while, particularly on the science side of this. The IMLS research that Rails is participating in, it is going to be conducted in phases, and the real answer I think everyone's looking for, we may not get until August, maybe end of August. So that said, if everyone is waiting for the definitive answer, you would be waiting probably till, maybe the first week of September then to know what the basic quarantine is. So we are definitely seeing some libraries have decided in our SWAN membership, they are looking at a variation of days in quarantine. Some have chosen to do 7. Some are perfectly comfortable with 3. I just think, unfortunately, there's just going to not be a definitive answer here. The variation, as far as what we're seeing across the United States, as far as how different regions are handling it, being 3 days to 4 days, those seem to be the norm. So we decided to recommend, as Dawn noted, go with the minimum. If you want to go longer, you're perfectly fine with going longer, but the minimum is definitely something that is going to have to be, something that local library is going to have to, make sure to follow and hopefully follow across the consortium.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about our holds processing without delivery. So as we've been saying all along, it's local holds only, your items, your patrons for pickup at your library. So holds previously placed are going to remain in the queue, even if you don't hold that title and there are no local copies to fulfill that hold. The patron's hold is still there, waiting for when delivery and resource sharing totally opens up. New holds are going to require that the title be owned by the home library. So they're not going to be able, your patrons can't place holds for items that you don't own from this point forward until we remove those restrictions. We do have ongoing reports that are running that are matching up the patron library and the home library and the station library to make sure that these holds kind of stay in sync with you're going to be able to process your items going to your patrons. And we do have reports to help you figure out if there are titles your library doesn't own that there are outstanding holds for. But keep in mind, new holds aren't coming through that you don't own. So we'll be trying to share some, like, what are popular titles throughout the consortium that you may want to consider for purchase if you don't have, things like that. And then we had local hold restrictions have been retained. Now, when we initially, and this means like if you have what we started out with and we found as people started to go to curbside, we had put in a loan rule that basically across the board said, my patron, my item, they can place a hold. But we had exceptions where even your patrons might not be able to place holds for particular item types. We have restored all of those thanks to Vicki not having Vicki and her good eyesight and attention to detail, going through those hold maps, finding those discrepancies, and then reapplying those rules. So we think we've got everything covered. Now, if in any case something is you're finding holds coming through that shouldn't, or you decide that you want to open up for your own patrons things that maybe you would not have allowed them to place holds on previously, just put in a help ticket and we'll work through those hold map changes to enable that. So in this perfect world, if things are working appropriately, your library is going to process your items for your patron, and everything is beautifully green in this little graphic here. But we do know we've got some items in flux. So let's look at a few weird scenarios that those of you that have opened up for curbside and started processing, you've actually encountered some of these things. And we worked through a scenario, a common practice that's going to resolve these problems when you encounter them. So these anomalies are occurring for items that were caught in transit or they expired on the hold shelf. So those things that kind of were in limbo or half processed when we shut everything down. So let's look at scenario number 1 here. It's your item, but it's trapping for not your patron. So in that case, you don't want to send it to transit anywhere else. So what you do if the scenario doesn't match your patron, your item, in this case, first case, you're going to check it out to your own agency's missing user ID, and then you're going to check it back in. So that checkout to your missing user and check in, that immediately matches things back up with our current hold map rules and loan rules. So it kind of clears the problem. Okay, so let's look at scenario number 2. It's not your item. Maybe it's in a bin and you're processing a bin. It's not your item and it's saying transit it to a third library. Not your patron, not your item, but somehow you've got your hands on it. In that case, what you're going to do is check it out to your missing account and check it right back in. And then it's going to be put in your bag or your box or your stack for that library, for the purple library, for when delivery starts back up. It's going to go back to the purple library. And then in the third scenario, you've got not your item, but it's your patron. Okay, so this is probably something that's come in through the delivery bins that was there to fulfill a hold that was meant for your patron. In this case, again, it really needs to go back to the home library and not to your patron. So you're going to check it. You're going to check it out to missing, then you're going to check it in. And it's going to put that back in sync, and it's going to put the red library's patron next in the queue for getting that hold. Now we know that the purple library stuff and the red library stuff, they're going to sit there in stacks waiting to be delivered to that library when delivery starts up, or as we've talked in the past, if there's any kind of book drop swaps or curbside swaps you're doing with neighboring libraries, but we want to get them to the right libraries so that they can process the holds for their patrons. So if you encounter anything odd, just pause for a moment, and then you're going to check it out to your missing account and check it back in, and it will then look at the current hold map rules. Vicki, you want to add anything since you're the one that helps solve all these complicated hold issues?
I know that we've got a question here about, well, what if the patron is just in the next town over and they wouldn't mind picking it up there? We really want to try to get material back to their home libraries. As Dawn said, some libraries are coordinating exchanges of their materials since they're the only ones that will trap it. And these were holds that were just kind of stuck. So keep in mind that if it hadn't been stuck, it would not have come up on hold for that patron. So we're trying to make sure that the patrons kind of get used to having to go back to their home library for now, unless they're making those kinds of agreements with you in advance and they're calling.
Yeah, so go ahead, Tara.
We're getting a few questions coming in. If y'all are ready for those, we have another one. What about items that we've left on the hold shelf if they're not our items? I thought we were supposed to honor those holds.
Right, those are the ones that were on your hold shelf. but we're talking about the ones that are coming in your delivery bins that have been sitting there.
And then another question, is there a reason our patron can't have the book that came here for them and has been sitting in our library for 2 months? They will then return it here and we will hold it to send. At least they could use it rather than letting it sit in the box till August.
I
But
think that if those are, if it is an item that was on the whole shelf waiting for your patron, and if it was in an incoming bin and was supposed to be your patron, I would first contact that other library to get their approval to say, we have that, because libraries, again, they may be working up some kind of arrangement to try and get titles back. So I think that you all know your libraries and situations and your colleagues probably far better than we do. So just get on the line with a library, because if they are open and offering curbside, it might be a title that, one of their patrons is waiting for. But I think you all can take care of that communication. Does that sound reasonable? I mean, we're in new territory. We want to do what's best for everybody and just offer like a common solution. But there's always room to talk with a colleague.
I have another question, and I can't actually remember the date. Someone's asking, when did the holds on other libraries' items stop? Was that like 2 weeks ago? Do you have an exact date for that?
That was around May 1st.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to say it was.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, Vicki, get us the exact date, but we believe it was May 1st.
April 28th.
Oh, April 28th. In preparation
Slightly
for
earlier.
May 1st. Okay.
Got another question. Is there a way for SWAN to do a survey and ask if we are willing to let other libraries process holds in the blue bins? It would save us a lot of time so we don't have to call a bunch of libraries.
Unfortunately, we have not been getting an overwhelming response to our web forms. So we're still going to be in that situation where ones that answer, we have the information for. So we could do that, but keep in mind the majority are not going to answer. So you've still got to then check that list and check with that library. But we could certainly send that out if it would be helpful. Okay. I know this is a complicated kind of scenario, but it's just keep in mind things that have arrived in bins or that you may be processing from your hold shelf just may do some things that aren't expected. If they were brand new, we would very easily know that they're following this kind of scenario. But if they're in limbo, somewhere half processed, we're going to be in all of this. All right. Could we run a poll right now asking if attendees would want their blue bins honored? Unfortunately, we have to have polls pre-populated, so we can't do them right on the fly here without going in and creating the poll. But we will do that after the session. It seems like something that would be helpful for people, so we will add that. Okay, we continue to add reports in the COVID folder just to help you understand what's out there, what's in limbo. So something we've added since last time were items in transit since February 1st. So we consider these to be those items in limbo. They may be sitting in other libraries' bins waiting for pickup. They may be at rails. So it's helpful to know what those are. So that's in the in transit folder. Okay, third-party integrations. We heard also that there is a deal for Conversite. I don't know how you say that. That company Libro, which is an ILS mobile app that integrates with your integrated library system. And they also have just added a curbside scheduler. We will not be supporting the ILS integration of that mobile app because we already have a mobile app, and many of you are also using your own mobile app. So it's another ILS integration that is just adding another catalog mobile app feature. Since we have that covered across the board with the SWAN Mobile, Blue Cloud Mobile, we just do not have the capability to add that at this time. However, the curbside scheduler can be licensed separately, and it does not do integration with the integrated library system, but it does allow scheduling of curbside. So if you are interested in just the curbside scheduling piece, you can look at the Rails deals and discounts page, and the lowest cost for the curbside scheduling piece, just curbside, no integrated library system connection, is $2,250, and it is a 1-year commitment for that, and that's for up to 10,000 active patrons. If you have more than 10,000 active patrons, then the cost will be higher. We are providing, SWAN is providing the curbside communicator, which does not have a scheduling component, but we are providing that at no cost to our member libraries. We'll talk about that in a second. So we just want you to be aware of the curbside scheduling with Libro would have to be that application by itself, not with the integration. And then e-content. If there are any e-content deals or new services that you hear about and you're considering, please involve us as soon as possible in that review process, because Robin is going to get involved to determine what is the authentication method used. We'll have to get our IT staff involved if there's any integration features in addition to Open Athens that have to be coordinated. So it takes a lot of coordination to make sure that those are secure connections to our patron and bibliographic data. So if you hear about something and you're excited, let us know. We will help you research that and investigate, and we'll try our best to make sure it will work for you within the constraints we set up. All right, Stephen, you want to talk a little bit about Curbside Communicator?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. As Dawn mentioned before, Curbside Communicator is a tool that we are offering from Unique Management Services. We're offering this to all the libraries that are opening and offering Curbside. We found this to be a really easy solution for kind of facilitating that communication. It can either be done through SMS text messaging or through a web interface that's provided to the patron. And the web interface is also mobile friendly. So we found a lot of good ways of kind of integrating that with some of our offerings, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. So Curbside Communicator, Unique has been setting these up for about the last week, and as of Monday, we actually have 11 participating libraries that have been configured, and Unique has delivered all the credentials to them. And so I included a link there just in case you're not as familiar with Curbside Communicator. We've got a link there that just kind of shows a video of kind of integrating it and some of the features of it. But it's a pretty straightforward platform. It's probably the easiest way to work with patrons, and it's a nice, easy to use web interface that's offered to your staff. So if you are interested in offering Curbside Communicator, please just check that box when you're submitting your opening date and services request form. So that's the standard form that tells us all about your curbside offerings and your reopening and you just select, yes, we'll be using Curbside Communicator. The one thing that we did realize that we didn't really clarify in that form is whether or not you're actually going to be offering that to your patrons, or if you're just kind of doing a trial of it. So we're going to be probably reaching it back out to you just to facilitate some of this, and then you'll also hear from Unique Management Services once they have your account information set up. So you'll get an email from them, and that's also kind of the opportunity for some further customization. So to give you some examples, we've had some libraries that maybe are not doing parking spaces. So they're actually, folks are actually pulling up to the curb. And so maybe they want to have the car make and model as a part of the automation, the questions that are asked of the patron. Some other libraries are doing like a tableside pickup. So they don't have patrons necessarily pulling up and just dropping the materials in their car, but the patrons are actually walking up to the library, either into the vestibule or something like that. So that's some of the customization that Unique has been doing. They're not doing as much of the language changes, but it's sort of the input, the automation that they can change. So there's customization to a limited extent. And then from our side, once we hear from Unique, they've been CCing us on all of those setups. So they give us the links and the phone numbers associated with your library as well. And then we, if you are offering it to your patrons, we proceed to put that in your enterprise banner. Just a really easy link. Hey, are you at the library? Click here, and then that takes you into Curbside Communicator from the patron side. We can also add it to the, or we are adding it to the Blue Cloud mobile app, which we were testing out late last week, and it's actually a really slick way of doing it. If the patron is using the mobile app, and there's a few, we actually have a few screenshots of this coming up, but everything is contained within the mobile app, so you can kind of see that whole process. And then we're also adding it to the email receipts, and so that's really convenient because then when you actually check out the materials to the patron as a part of the curbside process, they can see it right then there in their email. Are you here? Are you at the library? Just click here, and then you'll go through the process of communicating with the library through Curbside Communicator. So to kind of break down all this, we'll also have a webinar, and I think there's another slide that mentions that. That's going to be on May 20th. So next, I think we have a few screenshots of.
Hey, Stephen, I think we have a typo on here. The webinar is at 2 p.m. tomorrow, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we do have 3 p.m. We throw that in to see who's paying attention. And Mary, good job. You paid attention.
Oh, I'm sorry. I actually updated the slide. It just didn't sync yet, but yeah.
Okay, 2 p.m. All right.
So these are some of the images from Blue Cloud Mobile. So if your patron has downloaded the Blue Cloud Mobile SWAN app, this is actually the process. It's pretty easy. It shows the icon right at the home page of the Blue Cloud Mobile app, and you can just hit on Curbside Pickup. It takes you right into the chat. Are you here? You just check I am here, and then it goes through the automation, and that automation is customized to your library. So that's, if you're doing designated spaces or if you're requesting the car information, that's where it's doing all of that.
And we will record that. We're recording everything. So if you can't make it tomorrow at 2, there'll be a recording.
Yeah, and so this is the slide on. So so we are doing a webinar tomorrow, and it'll just be just a live demo, and then we'll do a Q&A. It sounds like we're also going to have representation from Unique. It's actually the integrations director that I've been working with really closely to get these all out to the libraries. She said that she should be available to join us. So we're going to potentially relay some of the questions to her. And otherwise, you could see a live demo, which that's always fun, and we'll go from there.
And we did get a question. You're absolutely right. There is not a separate download for an app. It is either an SMS interface or a website interface. And since it's a website interface, we can integrate it directly into these additional options. And make it available for curbside pickup right there within the app. So Tara and her team are able, and Stephen and his team are updating those as we get those connectors for people. So it makes it a little easier for your patrons who are using the Blue Cloud Mobile to see it right at the top.
Right, yeah, and if the patron doesn't have any app, then they can just click on the link and it'll just open in their browser window, and it works easy enough that way. And if they don't have a smartphone, they can even just text. So there's a designated SMS number. They can kind of follow the same process through that as well. But the web interface is the easiest way of going about it.
And I just want to mention that if you're marketing your curbside and everything, and you're looking for just fun graphics and ideas of how to present things, I was shocked today when I did a search on curbside library in Google Images. There's some really great, cute, graphics out there. So if you need to get some inspiration from across the country, go to Google Images and search curbside library. All right, let's talk PPE. Aaron is still here. Okay, because he's got a presentation with Cersei Dynex at noon, so we got to get him off the line here.
Yeah, I got like about 9 more minutes, and then I gotta switch over. This is our opening week for curbside PPE. Jeannie Blake is right now at SWAN headquarters. So we have an online form for libraries that are wanting some of the items that we have available, the liquid surface sanitizer, the hand gel, mask, gloves, and face shields. We have tried to do bulk orders of these, and then we break these down to what are within reason smaller packages for you to buy. For example, we did buy a lot of the what's called hand sanitizer on the jug, but it's very liquidy. So I've been mostly referring to it as more of a surface cleaner sanitizer. You can use it on your hands. The Zep gel is in a smaller container. So we buying these in bulk, and then we can sell these to you either by the bottle, or for masks, they come in pre-packaged sets, and we're selling those as best as we can for you. But things like gloves, we'll sell by the box, and face shields we can sell individually. So we're hoping that you all, as you're looking at this, you can continue to order the supplies from SWAN. We're seeing a lot scheduled this week. When you do the order form, you will pick your day for the curbside at the SWAN headquarters. We are not shipping any of this. We really want to just emphasize this is a contactless pickup. We'll invoice the library when we get to that point. This is more to get you the PPE that you need to have your staff feel safe and get ready for maybe limited reopening and the activities that we're outlining for you.
And we do have a question about reordering and when should you submit orders. We definitely don't want orders let's go with bi-weekly. We understand that if you need more of something, bi-weekly seems reasonable. We are trying to keep track of our inventory real closely, but if any library gets into trouble and you need stuff, submit a help ticket. Even if you've submitted something or you've already done your PPE order and you come up short with something, we want to try and facilitate as much as we can what you need.
We've never done this before, so we're figuring this out as we go. So I appreciate, Leighton, you asking about not trying to clear us out, and that's appreciated. After this first week, we'll have a pretty good sense of the stockpile that we'll need. I didn't necessarily want to overbuy and be left with a lot of material, but that said, the suppliers that we've tapped into thus far seem to be getting us what we need timely. I may have to jump off now, Dawn.
All right. Bye, Aaron.
Bye, everybody. Have fun.
And go to the Cersei Dynex Connections at noon, and you'll hear Aaron. So.
Oh, that's fine. Bye.
Bye. All right, so just a reminder, we're still looking for ideas for Swan Expo web series. We had another one yesterday on cataloging genealogical resources, and we've got coming up on the 27th, the virtual outreach services. And coming up June 15th, Ange from Oak Lawn is going to talk to us about using Collection HQ to make collection development and decisions related to development. So we're excited to get more people joining us and presenting. So do submit something if you have a topic. We want to just close off before we open it up to hear what's happening in your neck of the woods with curbside. We do have this library checklist, and there are 3 web forms that we currently have open that we want to make sure that everyone is responding to. One is the opening date and services request form. And these are all available from this link, which is if you go to, in fact, let me just show you where to look for this stuff. Okay, let's go over to our SWAN support site. And if we go to COVID-19, on the far right-hand side, you'll see curbside planning. And under that curbside planning page, which we just reorganized, we wanted to make it really clear what are the request forms. We're going to try and call them work order request forms. When you fill these out, they cause us to activate some work on your behalf. So the first one is the opening date and services request form. That is the one where you supply the dates on when you're going to be offering curbside, as well as your interest in curbside communicator. The second order form that we have is due date extension request form. And that due date extension request form asks if you want to extend due dates past June 3rd, but it also indicates if your book drop is open and when. So even if you're not requesting a due date extension, if you could fill out that request form to let us know about your book drop, that would be helpful. And then the third one is ordering the PPE online. So this information from the due date extension and the opening date and services request form feeds into our directory of libraries, which is a link right up here, where we are trying to provide this information that we know will be helpful to all of you in understanding what our peer institutions are doing. So you'll be able to tell if a library has instituted a fine-free rule, if they're fine-free always or fine-free for now, that will be shown. If their book drop is open, that will be indicated. If they have activated Curbside Communicator and it's ready for use, the phone number and the URL for that will be available, and when curbside pickup is going to start, if it is. So you can get that information. It's a lot to keep track of. It's another place where we're updating, so sometimes this information can be not correct. And if you do notice it's not correct, please send in a help ticket to let us know we need to correct that information. Okay, anybody else have anything? SWAN staff want to add anything, any updates?
Dawn, I'll chime in again.
Okay.
Big surprise, right? What I meant to say when we were talking about holds and didn't, you had touched on perhaps making things holdable that you don't normally have holdable for your patrons. And I just wanted to maybe kind of specifically call out the lucky day items that your library might have. So since you don't have patrons coming into the library, they're not going to be able to take advantage of those lucky day items. So we can make them holdable for now. And then once you're open again to the public, we can make them non-holdable again.
Thanks, Vicki. That's a great Great example. Okay, we've got a good question for Robin.
Yes.
Is there a date when the EBSCO database package will be available?
So this is Robin, and your links will go out to you at the end of June, and they all, the databases start July 1st.
All right, only one more month. We're getting close. Amy, you got your hand raised, and I hope that you're unmuted. Is Amy unmuted? Oh, you're not connected to audio.
Oh, Amy did type in a couple of questions, or just a question if everything is holdable right now.
No, not everything is holdable right now. Amy, for a brief period of time, that was the case, but we went back based on feedback we had from circulation, people that were starting to process curbside. It's like, why was my patron able to place a hold on this particular reserve item? So we went back in and matched your hold map restrictions for your patrons too and replicated those. Yeah, we think we fixed it, Amy, but let us know if we didn't. We're blaming Vicky if they're not fixed. Is that okay, Vicky?
I'll take it.
Okay.
But she also gets the credit if they are fixed.
That's right. Yeah, she gets the credit for weeding through all of those, definitely. Okay, anybody want to share what's happening with curbside? What are you finding? Are you experiencing any negativity from patrons? Like Aaron, early before maybe everybody joined, he was on a panel with people from across the country that are starting to open up for curbside, and one thing that they didn't anticipate was kind of the pushback of patrons not wearing masks when they came to pick up stuff. Just wondering if any of you have encountered any situations in your curbside services that you want to share.
I thought I just saw a hand up, and oh, Rebecca has. There you go. Rebecca, you should be unmuted.
Thanks, Tara. We're going to be starting curbside this week, and one of the things we decided to do was to just have a table outside, and when the patron calls, we're just going to put the items in the bag, like the bagged item, on the table. So there's going to be no contact with the patrons. So that's just a solution that we came up with, just because we have a sidewalk that people can kind of drive up to, and we're not expecting a high volume of patrons coming in.
Okay, and Debbie says in chat from Indian Prairie, our patrons are loving it. No problems with patrons so far. That's great. It's nice to hear the good stories, and people are appreciating the service that you're all providing. So any other happy stories you all want to share? We'd love to hear them.
I did want to mention that at LaGrange, we just put out the board packet, and we had 4 people in the last month ask when we were going to do curbside pickup through our comments. So definitely we're looking forward to it. One of the things that we did is we still were buying new books all through the quarantine and having them shipped to my house. So hopefully we'll have some new things for people they can place.
Well,
Good.
there's a bit of nice feedback from Juanita. It says that they just got a great discount on Learning Express library subscription by mentioning to EBSCO they're part of the SWAN database package. So they say if you have upcoming renewals, be sure to ask.
Oh, that's wonderful. Great.
Yeah.
How are those of you that are processing curbside? I know that I think Debbie, you shared at Indian Prairie the day you turned on, were ready for curbside. You had something like 1,100 holds that you could have pulled. Those were items that were available that were on the pull list. So how are you all gating all of this stuff? And what's the communication with your patron to make sure they still want to come and get that stuff?
I've got hands up from Susan and Joyce, but they seem to be self-muted. I'm trying very hard to unmute people, but let's see.
Yeah, I'm having trouble unmuting too.
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple people maybe raise their hand but remain self-muted.
Okay, so Debbie shares that they haven't even started to do the pick list yet. They're making their way through the hold shelf and all the new items that they processed during the shutdown. And right now they have over 1,200 items on their pick list. All right, so anything else you guys want to share? All right, well, let me just close with, of course, you guys know where to get a hold of us on the support site as well as sending help. We will have another Fireside next Tuesday, which is the day after a holiday. It may be short, depending on how many updates we have. And we will start in June going with every other week. We know that you're all getting back to business and you have a lot to do in your libraries now. So we want to make sure that we're not having too many of these and we're able to share new information with each session. So thanks everybody. A reminder, tomorrow the circulation advisory is opened up as a Circ users group. So go to L2 to get information on any of our meetings, as well as in our meetings and documents page. You'll see agendas, recordings, minutes, notes, packets, all of that stuff for all of our member meetings. So thanks. Good luck with curbside. We will answer the remaining questions. We do have one from Tim that I just want to call out because it is probably a conversation. Are libraries letting other patrons, such as Chicago Public Library, call and pick up items at your library? It would be interesting if anybody wants to share what they're doing. Do keep in mind that the way our hold maps are working right now, there will be nothing showing up on the hold list for those patrons. So if you are providing some reciprocal borrowing services, it all has to be done kind of human intervention. So in other words, the patron would be calling the library asking to pull items that are available on shelf, like, do you have that Simply Scary Sudoku? That's a book on my desk that I do when I need a mental break. Do you have that book on shelf? And if the library says, let me go check, they find it and they make an arrangement to allow curbside. That's something that's all through manual intervention. The system is not facilitating any of that exchange. The system is merely facilitating my library, my item, my patron for pickup at this point. But we keep adjusting, as we learn and as services continue to reopen, and all this will change when delivery is once again available. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Have a good holiday. Doesn't even feel like a holiday, but have a good holiday.